New question. The member from Essex.
Speaker, back to the Premier. Speaker, last year, right around this time, the Premier was insisting that she'd introduced the most progressive budget since the dawn of time. But a year later, curb your enthusiasm, a year later, schools are being cut, nurses are being fired, child care centres are being closed, and the Liberals are beating the drum of privatization. All the while, she's opening loopholes for the wealthiest corporations in the province, while everyone else picks up the tab for more than a decade of Liberal waste and corruption. Premier, can we expect a rerun of last year with claims of a progressive budget while we experience what Bloomberg called the biggest cuts since Harris?
Mr. Speaker, there are 24,000 more nurses in Ontario practicing than there were when we came into office, Mr. Speaker. So, and on top of that, let me just say that the plan that makes sense that this member ran on, Mr. Speaker, in the election was a plan that...
I would caution the member to not hold anything up. Thank you. Carry on.
Because that is just the document that the third party ran on, and they ran on it, Mr. Speaker, using exactly the same financial and fiscal assumptions that we made, except that they said they were going to find $600 million more, Mr. Speaker. They said on page 2, and I quote, "We will balance Ontario's books by 2017-18 with significantly more fiscal space than the Liberal plan."
Answer. That
was their plan, Mr. Speaker, to find $600 million more in addition to everything that we were doing, including reviewing assets, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplement.
Speaker, the Premier can claim that she has another progressive plan, but here are the facts. Education, $500 million in cuts. Healthcare, nurses being fired across the province. Childcare, 18 centres facing cuts and parents losing childcare spaces. Public services, fire sale. Who's getting help? The wealthiest companies in Ontario are getting brand new HST handouts while families have to deal with cut after cut, all because of more of a decade of Liberal waste and corruption and scandal. Can we expect more of the same in this budget?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, what you can expect is exactly that we will continue to invest in health care. We will continue to invest in education. In fact, those budgets are going up this year, Mr. Speaker. They're not going down. So the member opposite simply will have to read the budget when it comes out and understand that the investments that we are making in home care, in our children's education, in our young people's job opportunities, Mr. Speaker, those are the things that will set us up for the future, including, Mr. Speaker, the investments in transit and transportation infrastructure that they apparently do not think that we should be making. All of that will be part of our budget, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Ontario can't cut its way to prosperity. But instead of laying the groundwork for growth, the Premier is cutting education. She's firing nurses. She's cutting childcare so moms and dads can't afford to go to work. She's even planning to privatize hydro assets that Mike Harris and Ernie Eves took off the chopping block. The Premier is spinning from the left, governing from the right, and destroying.
As I was asking her to come to order, she continued speaking. The Minister of Education, come to order. Finish your question, please.
Premier, you're spinning from the left, governing from the right, and destroying the middle class. Will this budget mean more cuts, more corporate giveaways, and more Liberal corruption, or will the Premier commit to stopping her cuts and finally putting people first?
So, Mr. Speaker, our plan is about putting people first. It's about making the investments that people need. It's about making investments in transit that will help people to get home to their kids and get to work in better time. Our plan is about making the investments in the roads and bridges in counties and municipalities around this province that are needed by those municipalities in order to draw business. Our plan is about making sure that young people have the opportunity to have work experience so that they can get into the jobs that are going to allow them to have that lifestyle in the future, Mr. Speaker, that will allow them to look after their families. That's what our plan is about. And that is, in fact, Mr. Speaker, the plan that we ran on. It's the budget that we introduced last year, Mr. Speaker.
Twice.
And this year's budget, twice. We introduced last year's budget twice. This year's budget, Mr. Speaker, will be an exact extension of that plan.